Welcome to the Wandering Road, a place where the unseen moves all around us. The stories you'll hear aren't just whispered legends. They're shadows that cling, footsteps that follow, and whispers that never fade. Every turn pulls you closer to the unknown, and once you've heard what waits here, the night will never feel the same again.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Wandering Road podcast. I'm your host, Chris. My co-host, Dean, will hopefully be here shortly. Joining us for today's show are two very special guests, Peter Rowe and Richard from the Searcher Group, TSG, Paranormal Investigation, the oldest paranormal investigation in the country of Canada. Gentlemen, it's an honor to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I was super excited when Kristen told us about you guys. We were on one of her, I believe it was a live stream for her show. She does live streams for her show now. Mm-hmm. And after the show was over, she was like, hey, I know these guys. They're the oldest paranormal investigators in the country of Canada. Would you be interested in talking to them? And I was like, absolutely. So she connected us, and we're here now, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. And it looks like Dean just joined. So, Dean, welcome to the show, buddy.
Yeah, hey, guys, I'm really sorry. So I live in Hawaii, and we do not have the time zone adjustment. Right. So Chris was like, oh, where are you, man? I'm like, oh, what? I thought it was at 3:30. No, 2:30. I guess we sprung forward, and I didn't know. So apologies.
Well, nice to meet you.
Hey,
yeah, you too. Thanks for coming.
You live in Hawaii. You don't have to apologize.
Or maybe I have to apologize extra.
Yeah, because we're getting snow tonight. So, yeah, you should apologize.
Hopefully it's not plenty. Hopefully it's just a little dusty. But, gentlemen, I like to start from the beginning. There is always a crazy reason why we all end up down this paranormal path. So let's just start from the top. Richard, I'll come to you first. So did you have any paranormal experiences when you were younger, or were you one of the lucky ones that you didn't have anything and you kind of just found your way because you like this type of stuff?
Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones. I was raised in a haunted house. So, all the creepy shadows and the whispers, footballs on the floor. This goes back to the 1960s. I guess it was about four years old. I noticed this stuff, and it was creeping me out. Sort of creeping my parents out because, they put me to bed and they go downstairs to watch TV, and then all of a sudden I'm going like, what's going on? And so that was my introduction. And, as much as it creeped me out, I felt that interest, curiosity, started studying it. Learned 18, started this. That was not to give away my age or anything, but that was back in 1970. Doing it ever since.
This is like an unbelievable opportunity for us because somebody who started something, but as far back as the late 70s. So yeah. I don't think we can get anyone else's perspective on this other than yours at this point. So I have to ask you, what was the prevailing feeling about the paranormal way back then? And what was it like at that age, trying to burgeon into that sphere? Was it kind of just coming about in the late 70s in America? And what was kind of your experience dealing with that in that time period?
It was wonderful. There was no attitudes. There was no, the people doing it back then could reach out to them and just have a conversation. Give them an opinion, and they would give you their opinion, and you'd have that conversation. And it was not like today where the attitudes. I know everything and you don't know anything. And it was just like a community. It was harder back then because there was no social media. There wasn't computers. There wasn't email. So if you wanted to reach out to, say, an investigator in the United States or in the UK, you had to sit down and actually write a letter, mail it, wait 3 weeks for a reply. And, so, or if you were lucky enough that they gave you a phone number to reach them at.
Yeah, right.
You could have a physical conversation, but it was tougher. But it was a real community. There was no real hardships or animosities or attitudes. It's just we're just doing our thing, and this is what I think. What do you think? Oh yeah, well, because we knew there were no wrong answers. In the paranormal, until you can actually prove that it exists, there's no wrong answer. I mean, you can maybe guess forward, build a theory, you can prove it, right, who's wrong. So, yeah, it was a fascinating time. And the very interesting thing, I think Peter and I talked about that not long. Back in the day, people used to, if they had a paranormal situation, it wasn't uncommon for them to call you and say, "Hey, I got a problem. Can you come here?" And you'd go and live at the house. You know what I mean? That's unheard of now. It's like, now it's all privacy stuff, and you got to be careful where you put a camera. You got to sign a bunch of NDRs in case you see something in the house. I saw that, but so it's changed. Phenomenal changes in the field.
Now, I feel like nowadays, like you were saying, how things have changed quite a lot. I feel like the pinnacle example is people lock their doors, whereas they didn't used to lock their doors. But I guess my follow-on question to that would be, in this crazy time we live in now, with all the stuff going on and things getting, like you said, progressively more locked up, people getting less trustworthy, there's a lot of negativity, I feel like, that's swirling around. Would you say that there was more paranormal happenings occurring back in the early days? Or do you think that it's ticked up more so now? You have a much easier time hearing stories that sound legitimate in this current era or this current period we're in?
I think more now. And the reason I say that is because, first, there's social media. People are more aware today, things that are going on. So they pick it up and they notice more. Back in the 70s and 80s, people were very reluctant to talk. So they would struggle through a haunting. And usually the resolution was, I'm just going to move. I'm going to sell, or I'm going to find another place and just move away. Where today, most people just want to stand their ground and call people like us and say what's going on, and we'll look into it. Logistically, if we can't get to somewhere, we'll find somebody that's reputable, and we'll see if there's more awareness now. I mean, with all these TV shows, there was hardly any TV shows regarding this subject back. There might be a special about the haunted Great Lakes or something. It's not like all these reality shows. People are more aware of them, but that leads to more problems that investigators face in the field. You get a call, somebody's got a haunting, they want you to come. It's not an easy thing to investigate a haunting. A lot of protocols and things we have to follow. And it doesn't help when you get there. There's like 25 people in the yard and they're having a barbecue because you're the entertainment. You're going to come and find their ghost. They're going to follow you around and see what you do. So, there's a lot of downside to it.
And solve it in 45 minutes.
Well, yeah, less commercials, You can get it done.
You know what they should do? Okay, here's something that the TV show should do. They should marry up the house makeover with the haunting part. It's like, okay, we're going to try to solve your supernatural, and if we can't, we'll help you find a new home.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
A lot of these things do go through my mind. And they've come up with crazy stuff. Renovate the haunted murder house. Or, I've seen a show like that on TV. I'm never surprised at what they come up next.
Do they have a lot of ghost shows like that in Canada? Do you mostly get the ones from other parts of the world, like the United States and whatnot, or do they have their own in Canada?
Mostly from the U.S. We do have a couple in Canada. There's a majority are coming. So,
and maybe a couple from the UK too.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will admit, the US has two things that Canada does: an abundance of abandoned buildings just sitting around doing nothing. And budgets. They have a budget for this. Where we have to go out, work, save, or go do an investigation. Right? There's nobody saying, "Hey, here's some money, go do this stuff." Right. So that's a huge difference in Canada. You guys have resources. We have to sort of make our the struggle's real.
So, Peter, coming to you, what got you into this? Did you have any experiences like Richard did when he was younger, growing up in a haunted house, or did you kind of just, get attracted to this field?
No, I'm envious of Richard and his experiences. I probably wouldn't have said that as a kid, but I came into this just as a pure fascination with the idea of living outside of the physical. Maybe in part with because of the Casper cartoons, it looked kind of cool that you could fly and go through walls and things like that. So, but then I cut my teeth by reading. Speaking of the 70s, the literature that was out in the 70s, mostly about books concerning buildings in England, like mansions and castles and hauntings there. Love that kind of stuff. And then in '84, when Ghostbusters came out, it was fun to laugh at the idea of ghosts and the paranormal, supernatural. But then spring forward to the new millennium, and I took a ghost tour at Fort George in Niagara-on-the-Lake, Canada, and was hooked immediately by the idea that ghosts and history are synonymous. I didn't like history in school, but once I took that tour and appreciated that we could be running into the very characters or people, I shouldn't say characters, people, souls who lived here at the fort and died here, whole families, not just men, but women and children as well. And the fact that you could possibly run into them, while you're getting this history lesson was, really did it for me. And I was hooked. And then when I saw on television at the time, Most Haunted was coming out of the UK. That was the start of the reality TV craze. And I thought, oh, people are actually doing this, today, in modern times. So anyway, long story short, I read a lot more. I returned to reading, found one of Richard's books, discovered that he lived nearby. So I thought, this guy's he's thinking outside of the box in terms of some theory. In his second book, he included a theory that I'd never heard of before. So I thought, I've got to meet this guy. And we stayed connected, and Richard invited me on a couple of investigations to help out with, and cut my teeth that way. And I was invited to join at the end of 2010, and I've been with the team ever since.
And now he's an assistant director.
Right?
Nice.
Yeah.
I grew up, and yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that Richard, similar to me, I had experiences. That's kind of like why I started the podcast. Then Dean came on, who didn't have any experiences. Well, I wouldn't say any. I would say like some minor things here or there, but not substantial. Right. But now that we're about 3 years in, buddy, you've had some weird stuff happen to you like within the past year and a half, and it's like, well, it does open up a portal. So I wanted to ask you guys that question. Going through your investigations, going through these different house calls and stuff, you ever get the feeling like, okay, I just got off the phone with these people. They asked me to come and take a look. They're plagued by whatever, a ghost, demon, whatever they want to call it. Then you get there and you guys are like, something's telling me I can't. No, I can't do this. Did you guys ever have that type of encounter or type of feeling?
There's some cases you want to re-examine and do like a threat assessment, like how bad can this be? What are the consequences possibly? So we do that threat assessment before we get involved, but we've never said no. I'm not going to go do it. We've been in bad situations, really bad situations, but you power through. You get it done. I know what the mystery is. There's usually 3 types of spirits. I mean, there's a lot of different, different spirits as there are living human beings, right? Because they all have their own emotions, their own agendas, their own feelings, their own thoughts. But they boil down to about 3 typical types, right? You have the one that's got a story to tell. Maybe they were a victim, or they didn't like how life went, or, there was some trauma and they want to tell you. So they have a story to tell. And then there's the one that wasn't very good, or he wasn't good at all, and he's got a secret. So they're always trying to, scare you away, because God forbid you learn this. And then there's the ones that just like to play games, right? Mischievous, hide your stuff, or turn the lights off on you. It boils down to normally that group. It can expand. There could be other characteristics out there. The majority, you're going to deal with one or more. When you get a conflict, it's usually because there's someone with a story to tell residing in a property where the one that's got a secret, so they're at odds, right? Don't tell my secret. I have to tell the secret. It's like, so then we get called and we have to sort it out. Once you learn the secret, usually the haunting will subside, because now he's got nothing more to hide. He's like, okay, I'm defeated, so he'll go off somewhere. That's normally how. Can it get bad? Can it get rough? Sure. They can follow you home. Even everybody's on the team can follow it home. Things will happen at their houses, or my house, or Peter's house. But the good news is,
you mind going into that a little bit about some of those instances of like what happened and what measures you guys take if that does happen, to be like, hey, leave.
Usually you tell them to leave or you're not welcome, but they'll follow you home. But the good news is they're attached. They have a strong emotional attachment to where they came from. So even if they follow you home, it's going to be short because their heart's not in it. They really want to be back where that attachment. I mean, everybody deals with it slightly different. I just tell them to get lost, get out. You're not welcome. They'll make some noises and they'll scare the dog and then they'll leave. It's like, okay.
That's so. I feel like this is a great opportunity to ask because when we do talk to people who do paranormal research and investigations, I always have to be curious about the minutia about how those things work. And that's always fascinating to me because there's two different kind of sides to the coin when it comes to the hauntings following you home. So what, in your mind, in your experience, what is going on with that where you have an entity or like something else following you back to your place? Are they pretty much free to travel as they wish? And how do they attach to you? And how do they find their way home? Is it kind of like a different realm sort of thing where they just have access to parts of reality that we don't have? Or is there what exactly in your mind is going on with their ability to travel with other people, attach themselves?
That's a loaded question. How long do we have?
As long as you guys want.
In a nutshell, there's two theories based. It could possibly be quantum entanglement. We've come into contact with something, and now we're entangled. Once you're entangled, they're connected to where they reside, but they can also be connected to you and where you go. So they can just pop in, go, and pop back out to where they. So there's that quantum entanglement theory, and then there's another theory. An author calls it that it's possible a contagion, like a cold, like catching a cold.
Yeah, we've heard that before. Yep.
So so you come together and you become you have this contagion that you've caught from the dead, and now you take it with you. And those events go with. It's short lived, like a cold, right? You might have it for a few days unless you reemerge yourself into that situation. There's a couple different thoughts.
One idea I had has to do with our, if you believe in auras around people. It was just a thought I had that in one case where we were all followed home, I started to think of maybe each of our signature auras was identified by the spirit on site when we were investigating, and they could find us outside of their home base, like a fingerprint, like it's unique to us. So, there's Peter. Let's go visit him and send a message, stop investigating here. We can come to your place and spook you, so back off. That kind of thing. So, but like Richard says, I mean, the possibilities are endless. That's probably as far as how it works, and that's part and parcel of what we try to do in investigating, is to find these kinds of answers, or at least build theory, and then build experiments to test that theory and see what we get.
That particular thing is, you can imagine, almost an impossibility to test, right? Yeah. I mean, we're dealing with things we can't see normally, so we'd have to physically know they're there. What method or that they're using to trace an individual or move with that individual to that location. But how did they do it? The interesting thing is there's 5 different people doing an investigation, and then those 5 people get into 5 different cars and they go 5 different directions. Yeah. And yet they're all by the spirit. So how? It's not like I snuck into the back seat and went home with you. Right. No, you found 5 people all over the countryside and visited them. So, how was that accomplished? We had that. I mean, if we had that kind of technology, can you imagine?
That's what creeps me out about this sort of thing the most, because, like you said, there appears to be something going on that is not just multidimensional, but powerful in the sense that, like none of the 4 of us have the capability to do anything like that in this realm. It's almost like when you get to the other side, you have access to different kinds of capabilities or ways to act, and it's mind-boggling and terrifying.
Yeah, well, I agree. They have these phenomenal abilities, but they're just as jealous as we are, because I can do this and they can't.
Right. Careful.
So
That's
like,
why they follow you.
That's right. They're standing in the corner going, I want some Pepsi.
I wish I remember what Pepsi tastes like.
That's right. Right. So,
That's interesting.
there's give and take
Yeah.
on both sides.
Yeah. Think of the ghost in the movie Ghost, the subway ghost, who, if I remember correctly, he sees a cigarette on the floor and he's like, "Oh, I'd kill, if I could, have a drag," kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, a lot of give and take.
Yeah.
There's stuff you do in the physical world that they can't do. There's
Mm-hmm.
stuff on the non-physical that we just.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why we take turns, right? I mean, eventually we're all going to be on that side, and then we're going to come back and do this. As if 8 times wasn't enough.
So, Richard, I got a question for you. You guys were kind enough to share the Paranormal Handbook with me. Sorry, Dean, I forgot to share that with you. I kind of kept it to myself. In the beginning, it says, Richard, you were in law enforcement and security for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
When you were in law enforcement and doing that type of work, did you ever respond to any calls that were like unexplainable? And if you mind sharing how often that happened and what you did, like when you got those type of encounters.
Yeah, that was the trap. I started working security work back in the 80s, and people knew what I did on the side. I was the ghost guy, right? So anything weird or creepy that came up in whatever job I had along the way, I was usually assigned to that job, right? Well, this thing's really creepy. Can you go look into it? And it became a trap. It's like, well, why me? And there's a lot of strange businesses out there, a lot of strange buildings where people are just going about their business. Really strange things are going on. And I always get assigned. Can you go look at that? We've got doors opening and closing. Alarms are going off all over the place. We know physically through the security system, no one on those floors. The smoke detectors are going off. When you go up there, you can smell cigar smoke. Well, there's no smoking in the building. Don't send the 6'4" monster security guy. No, send me. I'll go. So I go up and I gotta, and then I come down and now I look like an idiot because the boss is waiting for a report, and I write this report. This is what I found. Are you kidding me? I can't use this report. You're gonna throw me out of here. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, you asked. It's wonderful because you can see, there's a lot of companies out there that capture, and I'm seeing phenomenal video ghostly activity, and then they respond, or we respond, and there's no panic. Fortunately, a lot of them, and it gets into conspiracy theory. Oh, how come the government won't share that video, or how come that company won't share that video? I heard about it, and there's conspiracy theories that they're hiding. Yeah, they're hiding stuff. You know what they're hiding? Giving away where their security cameras are and what the protocols are.
Right.
In an intrusion. So they don't want you to know that stuff. They don't care about the video. They wish they could show. But to show it to you is they have to show their hand. Oh, we've got cameras in these locations. These amount of people that are going to respond. This is where the alarms are. So yeah, they've got stuff to hide. It's usually for their own. It has nothing to do with the video. But conspiracy theories jump in all of a sudden. Oh, they're just hiding that stuff. It's like, what do they got to cover? It's not usually like that. It's just the protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to say, I'm pining to get some law enforcement officers, or even like Chris and I talked about getting some nurses or even doctors on who work in the hospital, because I feel like, but going back to the law enforcement, I feel like that would be one of the coolest areas to explore the paranormal, because they're out and about on the streets of the city, especially at night. Like I'm sure there's all kinds of weird things that go on, explainable and unexplainable. But I feel you, because so one of my first jobs, I'll just say quickly, this was years ago, like right out of high school. I worked as a security guard for a hospital, a regional hospital.
Oh yeah.
And I worked the night shifts, and I pulled a lot of ER and psych ward duty. I don't really think I had any like definitive paranormal experiences, but I got to tell you, like when you're by yourself doing your rounds and you're walking through a big grounds at nighttime, especially if you go into like a section where it's pitch black and you don't have any way to turn the light on and you got to do your rounds in there, like you hear a noise. I'm like, oh, nope, not getting paid enough for this. Got to go.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, and they're very haunted. Hospitals are very haunted. Schools, very haunted. Yeah. I would set up a show with, see if you can get law enforcement, nurses, doctors, paramedics. A lot of paramedics walk into situations where the individual has just died, and now they're experiencing things going on around. That's just the soul. The body and the soul have just separated. Now this poor individual who's passed away is basically in shock. Like, what's happening? That looks like me. Paramedics are working, but they're experiencing things. They're seeing the shadows. They're maybe hearing stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. It'd be a good show. I'd watch that show.
Yeah. I think it would be cool to get a panel of people who work in funeral homes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
the morgue. But I doubt very much a funeral home would. I guess if they stayed anonymous, but they wouldn't want to be associated with that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
sensitivity to that kind of thing. But that would be another place I would think that would be rife with hauntings, even temporary ones, around the same period that Richard spoke of. Just left the body. I've read reports or tales, claims by people saying that they see the dead person attending their wake or their funeral, just to see who attends, kind of thing, and then they're gone. Like they're like, okay, glad to see so and so showed up. Bye.
Yeah.
Making a list like, okay, I'm going to haunt this guy who didn't show up. I'm going to haunt this person who didn't show up.
Yeah, and others will want to maybe spend some more time with their body because naturally we've been attached to it for how many years.
Yeah.
You might have a problem letting it go. So they'll stick around for a little longer. As many reasons for a haunting or someone to stay behind as there are people, as Richard alluded to.
Another group you could seek out are custodial staff that work in schools. These guys are working 10 o'clock at night, mopping the floor, and the school's empty, and they're here, kids giggling and running around.
So what's your assessment though with schools? Because when you think of death experiences and stuff like that, you don't necessarily think of schools right away. But I agree with you. There tends to be a lot of things that happen in the paranormal realm that attach to schools. So
you can imagine how they're going through. A lot of kids are going through changes, puberty, things like that. A lot of intense emotion is being poured into that school. Right, stress.
Right.
Anxiety,
right? All that peer pressure, social environment, being forced to maybe participate in sports and you're into music or, and all that energy is just, right? And it's just being poured into this building over and over. And, the bigger the school, the more energy. And then, sadly, kids pass away or have accidents or die or have a disease, or they have that attachment there, whether they liked it or not. Their friends were there, and that's sort of what since an early age, that's where you went. You have that connection to it. It's highly so, and then you get there. So spirits are very social. So you get there and you realize, there's other spirits here, and then they start to talk and they start to hang out with each other and do things together. And this is where you either get a good haunting because they're decent, they're just playing their games, or you get in with the bad crowd. And you get there and there's, the ones that aren't so nice, and you sort of make friends with them, and then they start teaching you the bad stuff, scaring people, pulling pranks that aren't so nice. And then that can lead down the scary path, as they call it. So schools are glorious, theaters, anywhere a great deal of emotion is put into some, probably.
It's interesting you said about funeral homes. I actually, I think it was like a few months back, actually interviewed a girl that worked at a funeral home. She actually had that type of encounter. There was a gentleman that had passed away. He was elderly, and she was arranging chairs for the next day for the viewing. And she had those stack of things that have like that cards that they hand out of the individual that passed sitting on the chair, and she accidentally nudged it while she was setting something, and all of the papers fell on the ground, and it was just her in the funeral home at the time. Someone else was in the office in the basement, and she heard coming from the casket, that type of thing. So she was like, okay. She didn't feel threatened or anything. She's like, okay, that's creepy. And then she told a story about how one of her colleagues was unfortunately prepping a body of a 6-year-old girl for her viewing the next day, and it's just him. And she said she was in the office with another coworker, and he was out in the viewing room just, getting the casket ready and all that stuff. And he said in his peripheral, he saw this little girl walk by, stand by him, put her hands on the casket, tippy-toe, look over, and went, huh, and then just disappeared. She said he ran to the office, said, I'm out of here, never came. So, yeah, what you guys say, about funeral homes and places like that, yeah, it's full of activity.
I still cannot use, there's like hand soap that's very floral. Anytime that I use the hand soap that's floral, like roses and stuff, like my mind immediately goes back to the funeral of my grandmother like 20 years ago. And it's just like, that's how powerful the emotions are that are tied to going to view a body, in my opinion. It's just, I can't imagine.
Scent is one of the most powerful initiation of an emotional response, right? You smell the cigar smoke, or you smell that perfume, or, I've been in that haunted house. I went back to investigate that years, like decades. It was empty, completely empty. We're standing there. All of a sudden I could smell almost like Christmas dinner being made in the oven. Right? The turkey and the chocolate cake. You could just smell it. It was like, and that lasted for like half a minute or so, and then gone. But it's just wow. And it takes you right back to it's powerful stuff, and it's fascinating. That's why.
And as investigators and researchers, we try to ask those questions. How does that work? Why are we able to sense things like that in the 5 sense reality? Is that a memory that we just experienced that was shared with us by somebody who remembered that moment in their period, and was everything lined up, all the planets lined up correctly in that moment that you smelled that smell, and you detected that part of their memory? Is that how it works, or does the entity or the person project that on you willingly to just see how you'll react? These are the kinds of questions that we're hoping to find answers to, but it's extremely hard to do, as you might imagine.
We need a bigger brain.
Well, yeah, no,
we need the big brain and figure all this out with it.
True that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you could get, just give yourself a headache just trying to figure all this stuff out. Like, where does it come from? Where do we go? Why do we linger? All those type of questions. The question that I have for you guys, it kind of just popped up in my head. I went through some hauntings as a child that were very negative in nature. Some people say, it was a very angry spirit. That I've had other people tell me, it was like demonic in nature. What side of the fence do you guys sit on? Do you think those type of things, it's just an angry spirit, or is there something more supernatural that, we may be dealing with those type of situations?
Well, there's angry spirits. I mean, how did my father put that? I won't use the word he used. If you're a bad person in life, you're going to be a bad person. So there's angry people, there's angry spirits, but I'm not afraid to use the demonic. They're out there. But thankfully, they're extremely rare, right? So, when you watch these television shows where they've got one every week, well, there's two problems. They're so rare that you're not going to have one every week, everywhere you go. The other thing is, if they were to run into a real demon, there wouldn't be another show next, because these guys wouldn't know how to deal with it. They wouldn't know how to survive through it. And they would eventually survive through it, but it would be months, if not years, before they came away and had the nerve to go say, hey, maybe we'll do another show. They'd be forgotten by then. But so there is demonic entities out, and there's different levels, but they're extremely rare.
To piggyback off of the demonic portion of the conversation, that's interesting to hear your perspective that they're extremely rare, because when we talk to people and we bring up especially like children entities, like whenever these kids make themselves known to people, I think a lot of people we've talked to have said, yeah, there aren't really any children ghosts. Like there really aren't any children entities. If there's something presenting itself as a child, their take is it's almost certainly something else, whether it be demonic but it's essentially a kind of trickery, like whatever spirit or entity is trying to make itself present as a child. But that sounds different than your guys' assessment and what you've experienced. So can you talk a little bit more about the perspective of the presentation of children? And do you think that most cases they actually are children? And is there anything else to add in terms of like why they're lingering, if they have an easier time moving on than adults or anything like that?
Do you want to take this, Pete? Or
I was going to say, I think they're both situations. You definitely have children or child spirits. They're probably more than likely lost, confused, that they're outside of the body looking for mom and dad and they've moved, or why can't anyone see me? And so you have that sort of distress and anxiety that sort of keeps them grounded, straddling planes between death or the afterlife and our reality. And the other example is, like you mentioned, the demon influences that try to trick the investigator or the homeowner, and by presenting themselves as children to bring a sense of safety or sympathy, towards the child when it's really not a child, and you fall into a trap that way by getting more deeply involved with a child entity who's really. But so I would say there's a little of both.
There is, yeah. I think more predominantly you're dealing with children.
Yeah.
They're no different than an adult that's passed away and in the non-physical. But I think that the two key words that you use that bring a lot of confusion to this is you said moved on, and you have to try and figure out what that means. And it means a lot. It means a lot of different things to a lot of people, depending on your belief system, your religion. You have to understand what moved on means. And like I said, it's different for myself. Theoretically, I'm not sure what move on means to the non-physical. Where are they supposed to go? If not home, or to some place they loved, or someplace they want. And that's what I find is the majority are in a reality that they create. It's sort of like being sick at work, right? I don't feel well, I'm going to go home. Okay, well, there's a little more extreme, but hey, I died and I just want to go home. So, and that's where you go home. And then unfortunately, over time, emotions or grief, loss, the family moves or the individual moves. And now that soul who wanted to come home is left in an empty house, and hey, what the heck's going on? Now there's an unknown family moving in here. This is my house. What's going on? And then it starts a whole bunch of situations, right? So it's complex, but people say move on. Like there's this magical place that they're going to go. It really is, and that's to study all the major religions. You're going out, not just studying it. Going out and talk to people within certain religions, right? Rabbis and priests, and pastors, just talking to all kinds of people. All the major religions believe in judgment. All the major religions. There's a judge. So how can you move on before judgment? Right? It's like saying, okay, I'm going to assign you to this lineup, and I'm going to assign you to that lineup. And then Judgment Day happens, and you go, oh, man, sorry, you're not supposed to be over there.
Yeah.
So until that day happens, if that's what we believe, then there is no assignment. It's a free-for-all. You're going to be wherever you want to be. You're going to put yourself in that holding pattern, waiting for somebody to make up their mind on what they're going to do.
Yeah, that whole Judgment Day thing, like playing into that, I've had that thought for so many years too, especially as I learned about different religions and different perspectives. Some religions, in terms of context, night and day from each other. But that's something, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to asking a question about moving on and where you go after you pass away. And, there's all kinds of reports about people going to certain places that seem consistent with certain heavens or hells or whatever. But then you have other people who say they just went to nothing, like blackness, when they came back. And so I think it's really hard to differentiate and spread or take apart the physical brain versus what actually is happening spiritually. And if like you said, if the spirits are waiting for something to happen at the end of time or whatever, that is such that interesting concept, because like you said, spirits and ghosts, they can pop up wherever, and they could be malevolent or angry or peaceful or whatever, but then they're kind of still up in the air depending on what happens at the end of, the end of time or the end of the earth or whatever is going to happen.
Well, let's see. And that came up. I did a couple of buddies I know have a podcast show as well. Back in, I think it was 2012. Remember the big deal about the Mayan calendar and all that stuff, right? The end of the world's coming. It's the apocalypse. So these guys were, these buddies of mine, they have a podcast show, and they asked me, they called me, they said, you want to do the show? We're going to talk about the end of the world. And I said, okay. And they said, so what's your opinion on on the apocalypse, the end of the world. It's done. And from what I've experienced with the paranormal, my opinion is if the world were to end right now, we wouldn't notice. We wouldn't even notice. We'd still do the podcast. We'd still go to bed tonight. We'd still get up. You guys will go to work. I'm retired, so I'm not doing anything tomorrow, except probably shoveling snow. But we wouldn't even notice. And I base that on the experience of finding spirits that have passed away, that are going through the routine, like life never ends. They're still cleaning, they're still working, they're still socializing. It's like the world, their life never ends. And the ones they're hanging out with are the same. It's like, yeah, nothing changed. They even sometimes believe they're physical.
Yeah.
So I don't think we notice. We could be dead right now. Maybe the world ended.
I don't know if you've ever heard this. Yeah, and we're just going, oh my God, that's just. There's a theory out there for death in terms of like the individual, right? So I'm not saying I believe this or anything, but it's an interesting theory, and it's that when you die as an individual, you don't really like you die in that reality you were in, but then your consciousness jumps over to the next reality where whatever should have killed you, you survived, you're still alive. So you've died, a million deaths, however many times, like you've gone to sleep and you didn't wake up, but then your consciousness doesn't see that or experience that because you just wake up in the next reality, like the next iteration, and you just keep going ad infinitum. The problem with that theory, in my opinion, is, well, everybody gets to like their old age, right? And no one's living, they're not getting to like 99 and then like die and then they just keep going to 200. But that kind of reminded me of that example, and that is equally terrifying, that we could all just be gone and just living as spirits and not even know it. That's crazy.
Yeah, and science is saying now that you create your own reality, right? And what you believe the world to be is what the world is. So,
right. Yeah.
And it would explain a lot of things, actually, right? It would explain the jumping from reality to reality, death. The Mandela effect. You remember a certain thing in history happening this way, but no, wait a minute, I remember it happening this way. And, it's divided. And we're not talking one or two people. We're talking tens of thousands or not hundreds of thousands of people divided on how did that happen? Well, it happened this way or it happened.
By the way, that's a fun topic real quick. I got to ask you guys. So with the Mandela effect, we hear a lot of the traditional ones where it's like the Monopoly Man or the Berenstain Bears or whatever. But like, do you guys have anything from your childhood that maybe isn't in the mainstream that you're like, wait a minute, like I remember this very different?
Can't think of anything off the top. That's
No?
not really for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've seen stuff has happened to me that's really weird, but nothing like that.
No, I
Things that
can't.
disappear around you and in the moment, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But nothing that would tie me.
Fruit of the Loom cornucopia. It had a cornucopia.
Oh, right.
I remember that distinctly as a child in the 90s. I swear it happened.
Yeah, the Horn of Plenty. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite one is the Kazam one with Shaquille O'Neal. Who's the other guy that they say it was? I can't remember. It was the other actor.
Sinbad,
Sinbad. And then somebody made like a fake video of it, and it looked real. And but yeah, that's it's just fascinating that. Exactly. I mean, the problems of AI nowadays is just a millionfold for stuff like that. But I do think that, in the very least, even if there's nothing supernatural going on, it is fascinating that you have swaths of people across the globe, and not just the Western Hemisphere. Like, I'm sure you could probably, we should probably do this, Chris, like go look up the Mandela effect in other countries, because I'm sure it exists elsewhere, but it's got to be like a phenomena that is happening. And even if it's explainable, it's just interesting that people tend to forget so quickly or rewrite their brain or their memory, their history. So I think that really plays into a lot of this stuff.
Well, and there is good evidence to it too, because I mean, the greatest one that really gets me is the one with James Bond, Jaws, right?
Oh, yeah.
Steel teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees that girl and he smiles, and he's got all his chrome steel teeth, and she smiles back and she's got braces. Never happened. Never happened.
Oh,
So that
never
whole
heard of that
scene was-
one.
Yeah. So the whole scene of that love affair doesn't make sense. She doesn't have braces, so big deal. It's just a girl smiling. Who cares?
Mhm.
The fact that they made that connection, they both had this
That was the
hardware,
joke.
right? That was the thing.
Yeah.
But the proof is things like Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. Well, that never
Right.
happened. It said, no, I'm your father, right? They
Yeah.
went to
James
they
Earl
went
Jones.
yeah, they went to the actor that what's his name? Jesus,
James Earl Jones.
Yeah. So they went to him and said, "What was the line?" And he said, "Oh, they've made 100 skits about it. It's in commercials. It's been in sitcoms. Luke, I'm your
Yeah.
father." But when you go back to the film, it never happened.
Mm.
And here's the actor
My
telling you,
favorite
that's what
yeah.
I did. So,
my favorite explanation for that is the jinn. So I'm sure you guys are familiar, but for people listening, so the jinn in the Islamic faith is kind of like a very powerful entity. It was, I don't think it's ever been alive, but it's a very powerful spirit or entity.
Right.
The jinn supposedly have the ability to change the physical realm to their
Yeah.
pleasure, to like complete freedom to change whatever they want, but they cannot change the memories of people. And so like that is one of the coolest explanations for why we have the Mandela effect. Like some spirit or entity can rewrite physical history, but they just cannot alter our brains and memories.
Right.
They can't alter people's experience.
That's right.
Right.
Mm.
Oh, we're all in trouble then.
Yeah.
Well, I hope
Okay,
I hope it can alter my paycheck for the better.
Yeah.
I need a
It never
raise.
seems to happen. It's always the negative.
And Chris and I make $1 million per year starting now. Yeah.
But it's funny, even viruses and stuff. How come you get a virus, you're always sick or you're going to die or something, you know? How come you never get a virus that makes you smarter or makes you stronger or faster? Or, you know, not one
Super
virus that
Mhm.
does anything positive. It's always on the negative side. I don't know.
Right.
And the whole world's
That would be great. Everybody would be rushing to get sick if that was got a virus that
Oh,
makes
we'd
you
have virus
stronger. Yeah.
parties. Yeah, we'd have virus parties and then we'd go join the Olympics.
You wouldn't need Olympics anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone
Well,
on par.
Exactly.
Well, that's why they have happy pills, I guess.
happy pills, yeah.
Happy pills. Guys, I do have a
Uh,
question. The question I had was, when you guys get called for an investigation, what do you do to prep going in to make sure, you guys are protected and, the folks with you doing the investigation are protected? And equipment wise, like, are there certain things that you bring, things you don't bring, like stuff that you do or you don't do? Because, like in those shows, like investigation shows, they like to yell at stuff and agitate things. Now, I'm sure that's just for show, but I just wanted to pick your brains on
The
that.
first section of our handbook that came out last August deals with, and it's even before then, how to start a team, how to form a team of like-minded people who will take this job seriously. But to get to your question, there's an interview process where you interview the witness or the homeowner or the business owner who's calling for help. Let that sort of sit for a day or two and then interview them again, maybe in person, and then compare stories. Make sure it's legitimate. They're not having you on and using you for amusement, like Richard alluded to earlier. We do pre-tours. Before any investigation starts, we check the layout of the site for any safety concerns. We look for things that would trip you, mold, a bevy of possible dangers to encounter. And I should say we don't investigate in the dark like the television shows love to do, because that's a safety issue. I mean, ghosts are going to be there, 24/7 anyway, with the lights on anyway. But when we go in, and our team goes in with a huge amount of respect. We are the guests in their environment. This is their home or the place they're choosing to stay, and we treat them with respect. We don't try to antagonize, like you pointed out. Certainly don't pull a Zach Bagans and yell at them and challenge them to come out. That's all television gets you to tune in the next week, doesn't it? To see what they do next week. So we go in with a lot of respect, and we invite communication. If there's anyone here who likes to speak with us, please do. We'll introduce the materials that we have, like recorders or proximity meters or EMF detectors that can detect changes in the environment. So, hey, if you can change the environment by letting me know you're here, would you please light that up? And again, all done very respectfully, calmly. Many of the times, nothing really happens while you're there, but then when we go and listen to our recordings afterwards, you often find there's a lot of audio that will come out of those initial introductions. I don't know if that answers the question.
And the equipment end of it, we bring everything, because you don't want to get to an investigation, have something occurring, and you're going, man, I wish I brought that piece of equipment.
Right. Yeah.
So you wanted that on hand. You might not bring it all offload from the vehicle to the house. You're going to bring in the equipment you're going to readily use, right? Cameras, audio records, certain meters and that. But you've got everything that you have at your disposal waiting there in case you need it. I'd rather bring it and not need it than leave it at home. Yeah, you never know. You might have this opportunity to capture something phenomenal. No, I didn't bring it. So you bring everything. It's a lot of prep time. You got to charge everything. You've got to make sure it's all fresh batteries, SD cards, all that stuff's got to be prepped and ready. Test certain pieces of equipment when you get there. It's got to warm up to be used. So, but for us, the workhorse is, and I'm an audio video surveillance, that's the workhorse. We get into a place and we set up audio videos. More the better. And then we'll energize the site by talk about occurrences maybe, or we might go the opposite. We might talk about we don't really believe in this sort of stuff, right? Just to get the spirit interested in, like, what do you mean they don't believe? Get their back up, and we'll talk about that stuff. And then we do something crazy. We all get together and we leave. Get in the car. We go to a coffee shop, maybe grab a burger. And now, because they're social, these spirits are in the house. And maybe they were interested or angry or upset about something we talked about. Now they're going to start talking to each other. And our audio video surveillance is on. They think they're alone. Well, they're not. And then we come back. We don't really know what we got until it's all analyzed. But usually we analyze it. Now we've got conversations, we've got names being used. It gives us all the intelligence we need for the next visit. Because now we know there's a Joe or a Henry or a Frank in the building. So now we've got a name to use. Go, hey, Joe, so can you tell us about why you're like, oh, you don't know my name?
Yeah.
So,
how they know?
It's that development. You're developing a relationship. You're building that relationship. They know who you are because they've heard, the team go, hey, Richard, can you come over here or bring that? So they know who. It sort of levels the playing field. Now we're starting to learn who they are, so now we can have a conversation. We're building a bit of trust. So, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Right, so that's like really fascinating, the approach that you guys take to your investigations. Because you hear about some investigators, they set up a camera, then they just sit there in the dark for hours on end, asking questions, and maybe they'll get a hello or something of that sort. But it sounds like you guys try to actively engage with the environment, knowing that, okay, if there's something there, they'll know that we're here, and we'll leave, and there we'll see, once we put out that energy, see what happens, see what we could capture. So that's a really interesting and different approach compared to, what I've encountered when I've spoken to other paranormal investigators. And, I like to go to American Civil War battlefields. It's drastically different from when people go out on ghost tours, They're like, okay, this person died here. We see this here at the Devil's Den and all this type of different stuff. Maybe if you snap a picture, you'll get an apparition. But no, it sounds like you have to, get these things, draw them to you, as opposed to what I think a lot of people like to do is you have to agitate. You have to do some form of agitation to get that attention, as opposed to actually, it sounds like you're treating them like they're regular people.
Yeah,
because they are. Yeah.
They're just outside of the physical. That's it.
Right.
And as I said, that's their home or their favorite haunt, if you will. And it's just a matter of saying, hi, we're here. We're interested in you. Excuse me. We're interested in learning what existence or life is like on your side. Can you tell us more about that? If we're lucky. But first, we got to establish that relationship and that trust before we can get even a hint of maybe what to expect after we leave the physical. But yeah, no, it's all about people to people and person to person, and hopefully you encounter some chatty ones.
Yeah. The one question that I had was, I know some paranormal investigators like to incorporate psychic mediums and stuff like that into the group. Is that something you guys do as well? And what are your thoughts about, psychic mediums in general?
Yeah, absolutely. We use them. We use very specific protocols on controlling what the medium has access to, because we certainly don't want the mediums to know the history. We certainly don't really like them to know where they're going until they're there, so they can't do background research. So we don't tell them really, but we don't bring them in at the beginning. Our investigations are very long term, so we usually do a lot of investigative work, a lot of background work, history work, trying fairly confident we have some idea of what's there, who's there, what's their names are, and then we'll introduce the medium, and he or she will impress us or not impress us by the information they're getting, because we already have a pretty good idea of what's going on. We don't have a complete picture, but we have a lot of the, one of the places we did, probably one of the best collection of evidence that we've ever had. So when we originally went to this place, it's an old church turned into a home, couple hundred, and we went in, we got two spirits. The young man and an older female. We didn't know at the time. We got the electronic voice phenomenon. And he said, as we were coming in, we put the recorders there, went out to the car to get some more. He said, Miriam, they're all alive. And she said, thank you, dear. So it's fascinating. Like, he sees us as, hey, they're all alive. Meaning what? They're not dead, or we're dead and they're alive. So there's some interpretation. But the most interesting thing was, he said, Mary. So time went on. I mean, we did this place for how long, Pete? 2 years?
About a year and a half, I think.
Year and a half, yeah.
Intensely, almost every month.
And so over some time, the owners came to us and they said, oh, we did some renovation. Back in the day, they used to put newspapers and magazines and stuff in the wall as insulation. That was their insulation. And they were doing some, I think, adding a bathroom at the time or whatever, and they tore one of the walls out. They found all these magazines going back to, I think it was 1906 or something. Mm-hmm. And she said, do you want to look at them? Of course. Yeah. So we went and perused through them and everything. And a lot of them were religious magazines. Like I said, but the mailing labels, a lot of the mailing labels were addressed to a woman named Mary. So not only did we get EVP of a woman named Miriam, now we found documents with her name on it from Canada Post in that building. And then fast forward a couple other months, and we introduce a medium who doesn't know anything about anything, and she's walking through the house and telling us what she feels and senses. She goes into the back room and she says, there's an older woman here. Her name's Miriam. I mean, it blows me away, because how much evidence do you need where 3 pieces of data corroborate this woman existed in time in this place? But a scientist will come by and say, no, there's no evidence that ghosts exist. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever. Like I always have to be like, do you believe in probability? How much does it take to believe in probability?
We're not here for the scientist. We're here for ourselves, actually. We want to learn, build through. For those that are interested, we'll share the information, and hopefully it inspires them to take that theory or take those ideas and build. Test them out. Take them with you. Test them out. See how it works. If it works good for you, build on it. Make it better. Right? Mm-hmm. Eventually, a couple generations down the road, maybe we'll have some conclusions.
I got to say, I definitely would love if you guys are willing to get you guys back on for a part 2, because I feel like we can go down so many other rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that I keep going back to, so like from my personal experiences, like Chris was saying in the beginning, I have had some strange paranormal experiences that happen, not to the degree that he has or you guys have experienced, but I would say the things I've experienced at a young age were more UFO based or alien based. So I do have to ask you, like, do you guys ever dabble in that realm as well? And is there any crossover that you see between paranormal and extraterrestrial?
Yeah, so I'm very much into that.
I used to be.
I study it. I found a lot of. Maybe some people wouldn't say it, but I would say that I've been lucky enough to have a lot of experience. I've seen a lot of odd stuff, a lot of stuff. Really strange stuff has happened that relates to UAPs, UFOs, or ET, all of them. And lately, I've been really focused on studying the whole phenomenon. I remember going back to the early 70s. UFO came over the neighborhood. I think I was 12, and I was out playing with my friends, riding our bikes. And this thing was around. It had to be around for a good 10 minutes, to the point where we got my friend's little brother. Do we have a camera? Is there a camera? And he said, yeah, my mom's got a camera. I said, go get the camera. So he rode home and he got it. I've always been interested in that stuff. And I'm studying and I'm trying to figure out. I believe there's some cross. What that exactly entails, I'm not just, I think there's cross. I think whatever these things are encountering the dead as well.
I wonder if it's an ability to step into wormholes or portals at will between alien entities and ghosts as well. Like, we're talking about realities, and I wonder if there's something similar to that with the
Sure.
UFO.
Yeah,
because
that's kind of an explanation for I think the people we've talked to who have a lot of experience studying Bigfoot or Sasquatch. That's one of the explanations for him as well. Like, or it as well can step into another realm outside of our three-dimensional space. But that's the one thing I'm stuck on, always joking about with all this stuff. It's like it's like a universal cognitive dissonance. Like, how do we have religions, not just one religion, but multiple religious experiences? And we also have ghosts, by the way, and we also have cryptids, by the way, and we also have aliens, by the way. And then just the more I hear them try to think about that all at once, the more I'm like, maybe we really are in an AI or like some kind of virtual reality, because it seems like they shouldn't all exist at once, but they seemingly do. So that's like an even more complex question than just focusing on one of those.
I think the easy answer, not that it's an easy answer, I think the world is more complex than we know it. We really don't know, between the lies and the cover-ups and the nonsense and the hiding the facts. We really don't know our history. We really don't know what's occurred in the past. Right? Archaeologists is notorious for lying. I worked at the Royal Ontario Museum in Ontario, Canada, one of the top 10 in the world. And it's not beyond them to say, look at this, look what I have. It's unbelievable. Yeah, what are we going to do with it? It doesn't fit what we know. It doesn't
Archives.
fit in the paradigm. So what do you do? Well, put it in the storage room. Nobody should ever look at it. Okay, and it's hide it away, lock it up, and that's it. We don't talk about it because it doesn't fit in there, and it happens all the time. So until we uncover a lot of the truths, we're going to be boggled with all these phenomena, right? Maybe cryptids and ghosts make a lot of sense if we knew our past, if we knew the history. Maybe that it's supposed to work this way, but we're sheltered and hidden away from those truths. So what we've done is we've built all these complex mysteries. We just don't know what's going on.
Do you think the hiding or the obfuscation of these potentially ground-shaking discoveries would you say most of the time, because I know there's probably multiple instances across the board, but would you say most of those cases are orchestrated to keep most of the population in the dark, or are they purely just human hubris, like, oh, we know everything. Oh, this is too complicated. This is too hard to try to fit into our already existing narrative that we work so hard to build. Which one would you say is more likely the culprit?
So it's both.
I was going to say a little bit of both.
Complex it gets. It's both. There are those but they put out that false information to a group of upstanding, respectable, trustworthy scientists who get the false information and give you the false narrative and laugh at you because, oh, you don't believe in science. How can you question that? So it's both. I'll give you an example. So back in the late 60s and 70s, all the way into the 19th. Every major university in the United States of America had a parapsychology department. Every one of them was studying this until the U.S. military found out the Russians were studying paranormal phenomena, ESP, astral projection, out-of-body stuff. And then they said, whoa, the Russians are studying this stuff. They got a leg up on us. So they started to study. And then what happened was every university, the funding was cut off, and they all shut down their parapsychology departments. They all shuttered it. Just said, that's it, no more. And why did that happen? It's because we had to make fun of parapsychology. We had to make fun of it and say, well, you believe in that stuff? You're cuckoo. Because you have to control the narrative. If the military is going to spend a fortune studying something, they can't have everybody out there studying the same thing. God forbid you make a discovery and it gets into the wrong hands. Well, we can't have that. And that sort of branched off to UFOs and UAPs, right? Oh, you saw that? What do you drink? Are you a day drinker? Are you crazy? Do we need to take you out for intervention? So they made fun of this stuff. I mean, while they're studying it and spending all your taxes. So you see the lies and the cover-ups right, and how they play the game. And they know a lot of stuff because they spend a lot of money studying. They don't want you to do it. You're crazy if you do. So until we uncover those truths, we don't know why cryptids show up here and then vanish, how this whole thing works. Yeah, you got to make an appointment and go sit down with Robert Bigelow, have a conversation, and see if he'll tell you. Yeah. Because he knows a lot of stuff.
And just a fun fact, people who didn't know, I don't know, I'm sure you guys knew, but one of the famous stories about the Soviet Union versus the U.S. in the realm of paranormal. I forget the name of the operation, but there was like a false operation where they injected this idea that the U.S. was spending a lot of time and successfully making headway in this sort of thing, like astral projection and stuff like that. And they essentially wanted to waste the resources of the Soviet Union, and they ended up actually achieving that. Making them think that, like, oh no, we got to pour all this money into all, to try to find out exactly what's going on, and that sort of thing. I think that muddies the water as well in the real realm of this stuff, because like you said, you kind of are made to be looked upon as an idiot or drunk or whatever because you're interested in this stuff. But then you also have like state powers who are trying to play this massive mind game to get the upper hand on the other one. And so there's a lot of false information. There's a lot of swirling of different kinds of ideas that might be partially true or not true at all. And so that just makes things so much more complicated.
Well, yeah, because they have, it's a whole network, right? So you have guys that'll tell you a bit of truth, and then right behind them is another guy that's going to give you a whole bunch of falsehood. Right. So you're like, yeah, it sort of makes sense, but I don't know so you're on 18 different paths, and most of them are wrong. And which way do you go? And there's nothing straightforward about anything. It's because they're very good at, you see these guys come out, that's their job, feed you false and to get you to believe it. And they're very good at it because they get a lot of money to do that. Yeah, so it's it's not an easy road, but I think we're going to get there. We're going to figure it out, whether they like it or not, as long as they're throwing us out windows and stuff by accident.
Yeah, knock on wood. But gentlemen, I think we found the topic of our next episode, if you guys are willing to come back on.
That poor guy committed suicide. Shot himself 18 times with a 6-shooter.
In the back.
In the back. But Peter, Richard, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm so glad you guys reached out and Kristen recommended you guys to come on the show. Like Dean said, definitely would love to have you guys back on. I feel like we could have a lot more conversations about the paranormal, UFOs, and all that other fun stuff that we like talking about. So you guys are always welcome back on the show whenever. Definitely would like that. Yeah, definitely. But gentlemen, for the listeners, you mind sharing where they could reach you guys, where they could find your books, or if they have any paranormal questions, or if they need help with some investigations, how could they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Pete. You got all the data.
Well, our website is all one word, thesearchergroup.ca. And once there, you'll find our bios, many articles by Richard, links to our books that have been published. As I mentioned earlier, the latest one came out in August of last year, the complete Paranormal Investigator's Handbook through Llewellyn Worldwide. And I'm sure you can get that on Llewellyn Worldwide's website. But Amazon would be a great source for all of Richard's 5 solo books, my solo book, my one solo book, and our co-authored book. In Canada, Chapters Indigo would be another source. Any good bookstore would have these titles.
Right. And if they don't have it, it's not a good bookstore.
That's right. Yeah.
But
Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a book by its cover, but judge the bookseller by its stock.
that's right. Here, it's too much reflection. Sorry, but
No, that's perfect. Very
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'm on Facebook, or it's you can get me through the website at Richard at the Searcher Group, all one word. You're just a peek here. This is where I told you back in the early '70s, chasing a UFO on our bicycles. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
wow.
incredible.
That is awesome.
So I got a few of them. I don't know if there's another one there you can see. It's down in here now.
Can't make it out.
That's
You're a little,
Yeah, the reflection there.
you're a little
yeah.
pixely.
you can tell it was an old camera, 4x4 photographs.
Was it a Polaroid or?
Yeah.
Did you
It's
have,
just
yeah?
I think it was a 110 film camera.
Well, thanks for having us on, guys.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
both.
Incredible. Yeah.
For the listeners, go ahead and check out their books, check out their websites if you have any questions, or have some potential investigations for them. Go ahead and get a hold of them.
Absolutely.
And once again, they are Canada's oldest paranormal investigating group. So that is freaking awesome. They've been
So
awesome.
cool.
We're going to have them back. Check out their stuff. And once again, gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Anytime. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
You've reached the end of tonight's journey on the Wandering Road. The show is written and produced by me, Chris, and my co-host, Dean. If you've got a scary story of your own, or if you'd like to join us as a guest, send your tale to twroadpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to follow us on social media for more haunted fun. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please rate, review, and share the show. It helps keep the lantern burning for fellow travelers. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your mind in the shadows, because the wandering never ends.